Welcome to the Reasons to Reason podcast. I'm your host and captain, Sal Galati. This is the show that's going to talk about all the things we're not supposed to: God, religion, and politics. So strap in, prepare to get offended, and maybe, just maybe, our nation can learn how to reason again. So we're going to do a little current events. We got news that Biden has been diagnosed with pretty late-stage cancer, and that's tragic. No one's excited about that. No one's happy about that. Certainly I'm not. That to say, how many people, even lately, have been calling for Trump's assassination. Just a really sick, demented mindset out there, and I hope it gets straightened out. But what's underlying from him being diagnosed with the cancer is just how much we've been lied to in this country, and just now provable lies, okay? So we were told that Trump was a threat to democracy, and I did an episode with a friend where I think it's called Debating Money, Politics, and God or something, where I called him on that. He would always say that Trump was a threat to democracy. Well, what do you mean by that? And he also said he never watched the media. This is something he came to his own conclusion. That phrase, though, was pumped in our minds for weeks and months and maybe even years. And understand, when the media is all saying the same thing, this isn't a free press. They obviously are working in collusion. And it turns out Trump isn't a threat to democracy. Here's what a threat to democracy is. That they allowed this guy to run the first time and win in a manufactured primary. Manufactured primary, yeah, I'm going to say it. If you remember, Bernie Sanders, Warren were good contenders, and for whatever reason, all of a sudden, they all put their chips behind Biden. And you don't want to believe me because I'm a conspiracy theorist? This morning I saw this clip, so I wanted to insert it. This is from the Andrew Schultz podcast talking to Bernie Sanders.
The problem I think a lot of voters had is they didn't even know if it was her. We didn't even know if Biden was president. We didn't even know if these were her talking points. And we felt that over the last 4 elections, Democrats, we felt that we didn't have a say on who could be president. We talk a lot about the Republicans being autocrats and oligarchs and taking over democracy, but from the Democrat perspective, and as I'm a lifelong Democrat, I felt like the Democratic Party completely removed the democratic process from its constituents. And I think they need to have some accountability of that.
No argument here.
I donated for you. I wanted you to 2016. I was like, this is going to happen. This guy's going to do it, and it felt like they stole it from me. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart when you supported him.
Look, but you have, in the world that I live in, you got a choice, and a lot of people, including my wife, agree with you. But you're down to a choice. Is it going to be Hillary Clinton or is it going to be Donald Trump? Not a great choice.
But it ended up being him anyway, so why don't we burn it down?
Well, because it's easy to say burning it down means that children are not going to have food to eat, that the schools will deteriorate, people will not have health care.
I got it.
And I'm an elected official. I got to represent the people.
That's fair.
And I can't turn my back on.
But then could we not also say, if ostensibly there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008, are they not also a threat to democracy? Yes. We often hear...
Fair enough. That is, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that point.
Well, there you go. Threat to democracy is really the party that hasn't allowed a primary, and that's the guy that ran against Hillary. It started back then, man. Bernie had it going, and it was, no, this was her time to shine. She conceded for Obama. She played nice. It's all orchestrated. It's all theater. So that's what I'm tired of. And then he'll go, kids are going to starve and the schools are going to deteriorate. What are the schools doing now? Kids are going to starve. What? They won't be able to get the Skittles, gummy bears, and Coca-Cola paid for in a taxpayer dollar. This is all a big scam. The people that want to celebrate abortion like it's a sacrament, they're the ones that supposedly care about the kids. Hey, Bernie, you know what? He could have his views. He could have his opinions. In many areas, I think he addressed identifying the problem in this country. His solutions are off board. But the main point of that is I wanted you to hear from them that they are finally waking up to the fact that the real threat to democracy is on that side of the fence. So why did they do that? Why did they install Biden? I don't know. I got my theories. I would guess they figured he was kind of a great empty suit to go in there and install. I know Obama always talked about wanting to run his... he said it in an interview. He wished he could run a third term but not actually have to be the president if he could figure out a way. Well, I think he figured out a way. You get a guy that wants to be president so desperately. Biden ran for president probably every year he could run. He ran for president, never got anywhere close, couldn't get anywhere. He wasn't electable. People knew he wasn't terribly intelligent. That was obvious. Whatever. Fine. There's a lot of non-intelligent senators. And he wanted it really bad. And they found a candidate that they could put up there and say, hey, you're going to be up here, but you're not really going to be calling the shots. It turned out, because of his lack of mental awareness at the time, which was obvious to most people, but the media hid it, and anytime you brought it up, they attacked you for being a conspiracy theorist. They knew if they put him in there, they'll be able to kind of call their shots. I don't know who it was, Obama and people from his administration. But that's the threat to democracy, that they hid that from the people. They installed him, and then they ran, I don't think was a completely legitimate election. We'll see if we'll ever get to the bottom of it. A lot of anomalies that never really got addressed. Everyone says, oh, he fought it in court. Never really made it into any courts, but this isn't an episode about that. But he was elected president, and he shouldn't have been just on the merits of the lack of media coverage, picking out the fact that this guy wasn't mentally with it, even the first term. But he's elected and we have our first term, okay? Let's go over some of the wonderful things that happened. Afghanistan, what a tragedy, unnecessary, an abomination. Many people died, many people maimed, unnecessary death of people that helped us there, and still probably ongoing rape and murder and torture going on because the people that have our weapons and money are not the most friendly of folks. That subsequently led to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. And think of all the garbage that this administration has to go and unwind before they could even go and move forward. I don't know, 1 million dead there? I don't know why we don't get the images. No one really talks about it anymore, not important. What a scam this has been. There's so many people that have talked about what was happening there before it actually happened. And it played out exactly like that. The poor Ukrainian people were used as pawns, literally pawns on a chessboard. Their lives meant nothing to these people. A lot of money was made, a lot of money was stolen, and for nothing. It was so unnecessary. But here we are trying to unwind it. October 7th, that attack on Israel from Hamas, money coming from Iran. Just prior, the Biden administration released a bunch of assets. So the Iranian who was broke because of Trump's policies instead continues to fund terrorism, and you have this tragedy. Just disgusting behavior. We have inflation, rampant inflation. And that inflation came as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act. Because it was mindless spending, and now we're still riddled with this spending that we're trying to unwind, and you can't even pass a bill that cuts back the spending to back before COVID happened. We're spending like the pandemic's still going on. This is all a scam. Remember that China balloon floating around the country for weeks? We have $1 trillion defense budget. We couldn't get the balloon down. I don't know. That couldn't have been incompetence. That's just to demoralize us. And then we had the border. My whole life, this border was a thing and not a thing. And then it seems like actually it's pretty easy to get it under control if you want to. And I want to remind you, because during Biden's term, they were trying to pass a border bill, supposedly bipartisan. When you hear bipartisan now, know that you're really getting screwed. If both of these parties could agree on something, they're really sticking it to you. That this bill had to pass. And rightfully, Trump said, don't pass it, because he knew that what that bill really was. It was essentially legalizing what was going on down there. And that's why he fought it. Now, the narrative spun by the liars was that Trump was trying to keep the problem going so he could run on it, where he had already solved the problem in his first term and Biden created the problem. No, that's not what he wanted to do. The fact of the matter is the laws are already there. All you have to do is enforce them. You don't need to legalize the criminality that was going on down there. And I hope that's evident to you now. After he got a few months in office, he already stopped the thing. So now let's fast forward to the re-election campaign. And Biden obviously deteriorated a lot since the first election, okay? And everyone saw, well, not everyone who was honest saw it. The journalists didn't see it, even though now they go, Jake Tapper's got his book, The Original Sin. He's such a hero. What a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist he is. You're a clown, you're a putz, you're a liar. You were a participant in this. Your hands are red with blood from all these tragedies that happened as a result of this terrible first election. And then we have the re-election, and he's great, and he's at top of his game. Listening to Morning Joe, he's at NATO, he's doing all these cutting deals. I've never seen Joe so quick, so spry. Everyone knew he was out of his mind, And then he had a fundraising campaign with Obama. And the noise kicked up, the music kicked up, the applause, the lights, and he froze like a deer in headlights. And he looked very ill, trying to get him. Obama coached him off the stage. Then we were told that was all conspiracy, deep fakes, he's fine, tip top. Then they had the debate, couldn't hide it anymore. Best they could do. And honestly, he did better than I thought he would. Biden did. Because I was aware. I wasn't surprised. I was surprised how well he did. But a lot of people were surprised of what bad shape he was in because people don't pay attention. That's the thing. I follow this stuff. I find interest in it. I don't obsess about it. To me, I find how it fits into the worldview I know is true. And that's going to be part 2 of this. We'll do another one where we see where's all this marching towards. And what is the real threat to democracy? The real threat to democracy is these liars and the consolidation of power, which we'll talk about in the next episode, and we're a constitutional republic, right? We elect our officials in a democratic fashion, but we operate with a representative government. And that democracy, though, is being usurped. It's being usurped by a lying media that works hand in hand with one party. And I just gave you the evidence. I mean, they must know that he wasn't well. Everyone knew. They couldn't just know after the debate. Where was everybody? No one had any interaction with this guy where they couldn't tell he wasn't with it. But I'll tell you what else is going on. The Electoral College in the House of Representatives is affected by all the illegal immigrants in this country. So yeah, they say they don't vote, but they influence the electoral votes per state. They influence the amount of representatives per state, and it has an effect on our laws on this land and how the government works. So even if they don't vote, which, there's evidence that some do vote, and there's evidence that one party is very opposed to any kind of laws curbing their ability to vote, it still affects us. We have these courts going blatantly against the agenda of the president, and not in a legal fashion. All these things will be overturned, but it's not about that. It's about delaying it, installing him, and stifling him. Now, the country elected a president with a clear agenda. Nothing he's doing, he did not say he was going to do. So the courts getting away with it is the threat to democracy. The people have spoken. Let the agenda pass. You don't like it? Put up a better candidate next time. Don't put up a guy that's demented that you think you could lie to us about and then put in a replacement that's not as... even her at the top of her game wasn't a bright cat. And then this actually reminds me, we're going to go to the press secretary for Biden. This was right after he announced that he was not going to run for president. Listen to this.
It would seem that people in this White House knew that President Biden was slipping, and it was hidden from the American people. So who ordered White House officials to cover up a declining president?
I know that is a narrative that you love, and No, wait, hold on.
He did a press conference.
That's a narrative that he loves. He goes to try to correct her, and she goes, no, wait. When you lie, it has to be straightened out to get to the truth. You can't let people lie and get 4 lies deep before you correct them. The only narrative being shaped was by them saying he was fine. It was evident he wasn't.
10 days. He did a press conference at NATO. I'm in it. There's all these things that I need to finish. And then 10 days later, I'm dropping out.
Okay, you're asking me like 2 multiple questions here.
Ooh, they're asking her 2 multiple questions here. Here's the highly qualified expert, Brainiac. They're asking her 2 questions here. And remember, when these people were elected, they were the ones saying, the adults are back in charge, as if Trump, it was all a clown show. Okay, let's just pretend for a moment that Trump being asked, they're berating him with questions and attacks and lies, how he could respond to all of them clearly, articulately, efficiently. And yeah, he goes on tangents, but who doesn't? I like my tangent too. But can you imagine if he responded to them? Whoa, wait, you're asking too many questions. Can you imagine how they tried to portray him as the one with the mental handicap and Biden was top-notch, top of the game? This isn't groundbreaking stuff what I'm talking about. This is tailored to the listener that maybe doesn't see the lies as clearly as I see, because if you're just kind of paying attention here and there, you're going to get lied to. It's inevitable. Let's continue on.
First of all, there's been no cover-up. I want to be very clear about that. I know that's the narrative that you all... Wait, no, you can't...
Did you get that? There was no cover-up. That's just a narrative that they're trying to spin. Biden was in complete tip-top shape, no cover-up. Was that a lie? No, another journalist asked her, and I'm encouraged that they finally became journalists at this time. Everything was fine, and then when the apparatus decided that this guy cannot win, Now we have to place him. He was disposable. It was so sad and pathetic. He was in the exact same state a year before as the debate, and he went from tip-top shape to now they're questioning him, harassing him. It was a lot of pressure for him to step down because the system knew that he couldn't win. He couldn't be the empty suit that he was during the first term. So she asked, look, you could put a lot of this to rest if you just give us the medical records. And she goes on to lie, the press secretary, that you have everything. We've been transparent. You got full medical exam. He's tip-top. Everything's fine. Because that was when they were still defending him. At least the White House was. Obviously, that was a lie. That wasn't true. Now, I'm not a doctor like, Dr. Jill Biden. You had Dr. Jill Biden there. She couldn't pick up on any of these ailments and didn't speak up. It's pretty evident from anyone talking about it that he obviously had cancer during his term. And not that necessarily precludes him from being the president, but the people should know that. There should be transparency. That's a threat to democracy. The threat to democracy is that this guy was out of his mind, and as a result, a lot of terrible things happened. And the media that's supposed to keep the president accountable and keep the public informed failed to do their job. In fact, they participated in lying to the people, keeping them stupid and ignorant, and in the meantime, causing division amongst society where people were yelling at each other because there was a group of people that knew it was obviously true and would raise it to attention, and there was a group of people that either were suppressing the truth or were so bamboozled by the media that they'd argue with them and say that they were conspiracy theorists. The last bit I want to bring about is they had the tapes of the deposition that Biden had. This was the day after 10/7, I believe, the day after the attack on Israel. And it was evident that the president had no idea what was going on, couldn't remember basic things. They're coddling him and coaching him like a patient through this deposition. And this deposition was damning, and I want to remind you what the deposition was about. Biden had papers that he shouldn't have had, papers that he's probably profiting from and using for deals he's making with people, but these were documents he had and he shouldn't have had in his home because he was only a senator and a vice president. Now, Trump had papers at home, but he was the president, and there's different rights that he has, and obviously they went after him with the full measure, but they couldn't get it anywhere because he had every right to have those papers. Biden didn't. And the only reason they didn't go after Biden was a conclusion of that he was too out of his mind to prosecute and put through court. So that's your president. Now, curious enough, this is when the cancer diagnosis comes out, almost immediately after. Because now the spin is, well, he's got cancer, don't push on him, don't. It's not about him. It's about the people that have been lying to us about him, okay? I have sympathy for the man. I wish him the best, but this is bigger than him. This is about how we've been lied to as a nation. And it should madden people that how many people died and how many horrible things happened as a result of this man being the president when he shouldn't have been nowhere near the office. You had Bernie Sanders, you had Elizabeth Warren running competitively in that primary. I'm not saying I would have been thrilled about their presidency, but at least they weren't out of their mind in the sense of having like a mental handicap, okay? Let's call a spade a spade. So that's where we're at. I think that is the real threat to democracy, that we have a media that lies. We have a population that has been so demoralized by the education, the culture, the media, that they refuse to see what their eyes see and instead trust someone like the liar that you just heard telling us from the podium of the White House's press secretary just a mouthful of lies and then getting offended when a guy asks a follow-up question. So I hope you enjoyed me stringing together a bunch of things and concepts, and I want to set up the next episode I'm going to try to tackle, which is seeing like the wider threat, the global threat. This isn't just happening in our country where we have politicians that are trying to represent the will of the majority of the people, that protect sovereignty, that protect borders, that protect culture and language of their nation and the best interests of their people, being attacked by the media in their respective states. And it's all coordinated. It's obvious it's coordinated. We're going to go through 4 or 5 other countries where the establishment candidate versus the one representing the people, and then always the one representing the people is alt-right, fringe right, crazy right, and the same things are happening. They're attacked. They're trying to put in prison. They're taken off the ballot. Now, the people that are behind this, right, even evil ideologies, people think it's good. And what we have to come to terms with is there's a Marxist ideology that's godless, and there's the biblical worldview. And in the atheistic Marxist ideology, whenever you see these failures, the rationale is, well, if everyone was a Marxist, it would work. And I rest assured there is an agenda towards making all the nations under authority of one ruling body. And what I'm trying to do is the people that are, trying to get people off the ballot and throw opposition candidates in jail, they think they're doing good because of the view they've adopted. And when we understand that, we can see when you look at policies that they're trying to get across the board in this country, you go, do they hate the country? They do, actually. They hate the country in the sense of they think the United States is in the way of this one world order, one world government, where all the peace and utopia will usher in, that all the religious leaders of Marxism and all these failed ideologies have been promulgating. It is a direct opposition to what the Bible teaches, and the Bible predicts these days will come. So we're going to connect those dots in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed that. Talk to you soon.
Sing it!
Thanks for joining us for another episode. I hope I got you thinking and out of your comfort zone. Believe me, the biggest fear your government has is a population that is thinking and talking to one another. So get out there, take a risk, start a conversation, make a friend, and reason with each other. Share the show with someone who you think needs to hear it. I wish you peace and love.